Hey everybody, this week on the Inktwell we're going to be doing a little bit of a look back on Anderillium Colossal Squid Dark. So this particular bottle, the dry variant, you may have noticed that it wasn't the most well-behaved ink. So Anderillium made some changes, and here's version 2 of Colossal Squid Dark. Now, a couple things of note. When you do go to the Anderillium website, you'll notice that there's no longer a variant selection between wet and dry. There's just one variant of ink now, and I believe that this is going to play a lot better, considering the amount of time and effort it would take to maintain two different variants and try to get that wet variant to actually behave, which in and of itself looks like it was going to be quite a battle. Now, the second thing of note is the replacement of the wet variant with the new Anderillium ink wetter. Now, this is supposed to make any dry ink a little bit wetter and flow a little bit better. That said, of the 4 inks that I've tried the version 2 variant of, I don't think you'll be adding any of this ink wetter to those inks, as they're already wet enough as is. Back to the variant comparison though, for the wet sample we did use the Bennu Graceful Chameleon here with the medium Schmidt nib, and for the dry variant we used the Bennu Briolette, also with a medium Schmidt nib. As stated before when I was comparing the wet and dry variants on the last Anderillium video, these two nibs write almost identical, which does allow me to take the nib almost completely out of the equation and focus instead on the quality of the ink. So let's take a look at the comparison itself. Here we have our 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. On the left, version 1 of the dry variant, and on the right, version 2 of the dry variant. As you can see, the dry time is very similar, the color is very similar, but if you look closely, you'll notice that version 1 on the left, even though it's in a medium nib, is almost coming out like it's in a broad nib, and it's having trouble even on the Tomoe River paper. And on the signature you can tell, if this was any other paper, you would see feathering on version 1. Version 2 is a much tighter line, and it's much better behaved on the Tomoe River. For this, I also did a second sample on Rhodia Goldbook paper torn straight from the notebook. You can see version 1 is having issues with feathering, version 2 is much better behaved, and you can really see the line variant now between version 2 and version 1. I honestly think that version 2 was a significant improvement, especially on this spongier paper that allows for more feathering if feathering is going to be present. So a much better job. And looking at the back of the paper, version 1 is actually on the right, so you can see there's a lot of bleed through, whereas version 2 is much better behaved and not nearly as much bleed through. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the bleed through really quick on the Tomoe River paper. As with the Rhodia Goldbook, version 1 is on the right, version 2 on the left, and as you can see, version 1 has a much more pronounced bleed through than version 2, so definitely a significant improvement as far as the feathering and bleed is concerned. And that can also be seen here on the number 16 Rhodia dot pad that we use for the water sample. It's much less feathering, actually it's not pronounced at all, and much better bleed performance on this paper as well. With the water sample, just using our bulb syringe to get a little bit of water on the paper. And once we have a considerable amount for both sides, just going to go ahead and take a Q-tip and rub the ink around and loosen it up a little bit, see how much we can actually get to spread or release. The water sample from version 1 performs just like it did on the initial water test. And on the outset, version 2 appears to be faring about the same. So whatever was done at Anderillium to differentiate between version 1 and version 2 didn't really affect the water performance of the ink. I mean, there's a lot less ink to release once it gets wet, as you can see here from the left to right comparison there. But overall, once we wipe it dry and take a look at the aftermath, the legibility or lack thereof from both inks is pretty similar. But I must say I am happy that less ink bleeds through the page, during a water spill with version 2, so definitely an improvement there. So overall, we went from an ink in version 1 that barely rated a 4.5 to an ink in version 2 that's actually more than passable. This new blend gets a 7.5 to 8 easily, with the improvements in bleed, the improvements in feathering, the improvements in line width. I now actually feel much more comfortable recommending at least Colossal Squid Dark to people that watch these videos. Speaking of which, thank you guys for watching this video. I felt like it needed to be done, especially with the changes in formulation, and I wanted you guys to see firsthand how these changes have affected at least Colossal Squid Dark, and we'll be taking a look at version 2 of a few other Anderillium inks here in the next few months, so keep an eye out for those. If you want to buy this ink, click the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button if you liked this video. Follow the channel on Twitter and Instagram at The Inktwell. Support the channel over on patreon.com/theinktwell. And click on the link down below to join our new Discord channel. It's a relatively small channel right now, but it's the easiest way to get feedback to me. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. I'll see you guys next time.